One Saturday morning, Laura Mertz was preparing for her 4-year-old's birthday party. Her husband Bruce thought he had a bad flu.
The next morning, Bruce lay in ICU in critical condition and on life support, battling flesh-eating disease.
Wow, today you'll hear their amazing story of united prayer and thanksgiving, faith, and the miraculous power of God.
Don't go away, all this coming up on Lifeline Today. Welcome to Lifeline Today. We have an amazing program today and the next program as we're going to share with you this amazing testimony from Bruce and Laura Mertz. And they're on the program with us. Welcome to Lifeline Today.
Both of you.
Thank you.
It's really good to have you here today.
You know what? There's an amazing story, and I want you to call somebody, tell them to watch this program and the next program. Phenomenal story. But before we get into that exactly, let's talk a little bit about you. Bruce and Laura, welcome to the program.
Thanks.
Tell us a little bit of how you met, because this is relevant. You met a few years before all this crisis, and God really had his hand on it.
Yeah, he did. We both kind of wondered when we would meet that special person we could marry, and almost given up hope. A lot of people have given up hope on us, you know. And then one Saturday we met at a worship night and connected. And just
met
kind
in
of
church, isn't that good?
Yeah.
Great
And we just
environment.
randomly connected and happened to sit at the same booth at a Boston Pizza. And we got chatting, and there were 5 of us there. And very quickly it just became the 2 of us, and the world disappeared. And probably within 24 hours, we both probably knew, I think this is the person I'm going to marry. And within 6 months, we were married.
And Laura, you have the same kind of story, don't you? You were really giving up hope.
Yeah, really kind of giving up hope, or just not really wanting to put my heart out there again, and really just had some supernatural breakthroughs with God, and him showing me that I would get married, and even who that would be. And a lot of that's in the book.
Yeah.
But because it's actually a really amazing story, and I can't do it justice here, but it really confirmed that, yeah, Bruce was the right man for me.
I wanted to have that out there a little bit, just so we know the background, because we're going to move into a part of your story where it could have seemed like, God, what happened? Why you've dropped me halfway through, you know?
Why did you bring us this far to, you know?
We should mention
See all this happen.
you have 3 children, and they're miracles as well.
That's right.
You shouldn't have been able to conceive, but you did.
Yeah.
And so there again, you saw God's hand on your lives. But we're going to move forward to a couple years ago in a March Saturday, and you are going to have a birthday party. And Bruce, something happens just before that.
Yeah, so I was pretty sick, very sick. I had this debilitating flu, and since the Wednesday before, and I was just laid up in bed. It was bad timing because we had our 4-year-old's birthday party, and relatives and people were coming into town for that. And later on that day, my mom's 70th birthday, so a huge day and leading up, and I'm just totally laid up, and I have tons of pain in my hamstring as well. It's kind of getting closer, which was weird. I was like, oh, that's bad timing, you know.
Yeah.
Pulled my hamstring and a bad flu, you know.
Yeah. And you were preparing for the birthday party, lots of people coming, you know, grandparents both coming, and here's your husband laying on the couch. And just tell us a little bit about what you were thinking.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I wasn't showing much grace at that point. And I just had a baby.
Yeah.
I just had a C-section, and now I was responsible to do everything for not just one birthday party, but 2 birthday parties, and family coming in and out of town. And I just thought it was really inconvenient.
And he had a
for him to
man
be
cold.
sick. And he had a man cold. I did think he was exaggerating a little bit. I was like, why are you limping around if you have the flu, you know?
Yeah.
So most of the time I just sent him to our guest room, and just so I wouldn't have to see him, so I wouldn't be frustrated with him, you know?
But on this Saturday, the day of the party, you were not getting better.
Yeah,
you were in tremendous pain.
It just kept getting worse, yeah.
And so you ended up going to emergency.
Yeah, after a whole night of not sleeping.
Wow.
My first time in my life, I can remember that. Writhing in pain, and any meds you'd pop, you know, Advil or Tylenol, just didn't even touch it.
Yeah.
And then finally asked them to drive me in just so I could get some better medicine, some morphine maybe or something, you know. And then even when they gave me all that and any kind of narcotic and stuff. It didn't touch it, and nothing was addressing it. And so, so they eventually had to send me in for a scan, an ultrasound, to see what was really going on inside there.
And what did they find?
They found a pocket of fluid, which they said was indicative of some kind of an infection. And they didn't know at that point what kind of infection it would be, but that's what was causing the pain, and that's what was causing the fever. And
I had really low blood pressure
Really
at the
low
time
blood
too,
pressure.
which at the time they never told us that, all these details and things. But looking back now, you realize they knew what was going on. There was something really
They had
serious.
some concerns.
Oh yeah, and I hadn't peed apparently for like 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
And so I say apparently because later on when they put me into surgery, they wiped out the drugs they gave me, wiped out some memory and stuff. So I don't even remember what I said or not. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they knew things were shutting down there, and this was serious.
So on Saturday already they had, like, this is amazing. What a quick transition from you have a flu, you're a man cold, into your ICU and you're having surgery, and you're not actually awake any longer. They put you into a coma, and so you're now the rest of the story. You're not there for the most part, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I just had a good long sleep.
Till you woke up 3 weeks later.
Right.
Yes.
Wow, a lot of things happened though in that time. Laura, just tell us a little bit about let's start Sunday morning when you phoned the ICU, because you had felt that they had gotten everything and that it was probably going to be a 2-week stay in the hospital, but he would be fine. That's what you went home with, and then Sunday morning you called ICU.
yeah, and I called just to make sure, hey, how'd the night go? And the nurse was quite serious, and she said, well, he's gotten worse, and he actually almost flatlined 3 times last night, and explained to me that he had virtually no blood pressure on his own.
This must have been a shock.
Absolutely.
To hear them say now your husband has flatlined almost 3 times, that means he died or almost died.
Almost
Yeah.
died.
And what was your response? It must have been surreal. Is this really happening?
Just, yeah, it's totally like, almost no tears, like you're just like, what? I don't get it. And I remember posting it on Facebook that day, and then people from our church heard it, and our pastor even read it on Facebook right before, and he actually handed off the mic to somebody else a couple minutes before he was supposed to preach.
Yeah.
And he just left the church and came right down. And everyone started to realize this is now a life-threatening thing.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it was already serious. Like you found out on the Saturday that I had flesh-eating disease.
Yeah.
Right? So, like,
I mean,
That's serious.
that sounds
Everybody's
serious, right?
heard those
But-
horrible words,
but if you don't know what it
flesh-eating
is.
disease. Well, some do.
but they thought they'd
I
got it,
didn't.
right? But they thought they'd got it, right?
Yeah.
When they did the surgery, they thought they'd got it. So.
Yeah.
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 So, the reality of that must have been crushing in about that point in time. You are overwhelmed. You have a 2-month-old baby, you have your children, but you said that you created this Facebook page because everybody was texting you. Tell us about the response to this.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. We just basically I put it up because I was tired of texting people, and I thought if I put it in one place, everybody could get their information there, and nobody would bug me for it. And what it turned, it just started to spread like wildfire, and someone would share it on their page. At one point, I went on Facebook, and this is the only time in my life I have seen every single feed on Facebook, except for the odd Pampers ad, was something about my husband.
Wow.
Every single person I knew who had posted on Facebook had posted something about him. And it got to the point where we had heard of tens of thousands of people who were so compelled to pray for Bruce.
That alone is supernatural,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That does,
It
I
is,
mean, you see
yeah.
all kinds of things on Facebook, they don't get that kind of response. I remember hearing about it and in our own church service, and right away, something inside of me said, this really needs prayer. And I was praying for you in our public services, and then I was at a ministerial and prayer meeting, and was right away saying, we need to pray for this man and Bruce and Laura. And I don't know why. I didn't have any medical information. So even I sensed something about that, the sense that God wanted us to pray for you. And Bruce, you're laying asleep and all this is going on.
Got the easy part of it.
Yeah.
Your church really responded, though. They really helped you, didn't they,
wow.
Laura?
Yeah, they were just the picture of community, and I think of what community is really supposed to be. They literally took care of every conceivable need that I had, right from food, just those tangible needs, to parking passes and food, and mowing my lawn and cleaning out my hot tub and everything you can
Yeah.
imagine. Anything that somebody was skilled at, they would offer to do and do for our family, and it was remarkable. But even more than just the tangible things was the prayer support and the burden that they took upon themselves. The groups that would form every night in homes to pray, as well as there would usually be 20 to 30 people all day long, 24 hours a day in the waiting room at the hospital. And the hospital had never seen anything. They'd never seen that much response for one person before.
What a testimony.
You know, it reminds me in the Bible where Peter was arrested, you know, and then they all gathered in the house and were praying intensely for him and for his deliverance. And then he is supernaturally released from prison, shows up at the door, and they don't even believe it's him, right? The little girl Rhoda.
But that's the power of united prayer. It's powerful. You know.
Absolutely.
So your church responded like that. It was amazing. And just talk to us about that week, because it was like a roller coaster week. All of the malfunctions that Bruce was dealing with in his body, just talk to us about that, because it could have been one that killed him, but there were so many together.
And as I understand it, the doctors had said that he had 6 conditions that were typically fatal happening simultaneously.
Which were, number one, his blood pressure was so
his
low.
blood pressure, and that was kind of the most immediate need. Because he couldn't keep a blood.
0 almost.
Yeah,
well,
7.
Let's be real.
I think they're supposed to be like 125 or something, and they were 7. And so not only could he bleed out, but because of the condition that he had and the sepsis in his blood clotted really easy. It actually would clot his machine. He had a dialysis machine because his kidneys were also failed, and it would clot the machine sometimes 6 times a day.
So the dialysis was full-time too?
Full-time.
You had no kidney function?
Yeah.
Wow. What else was happening?
He also had pneumonia. He ended up having an allergic reaction to penicillin, which we didn't know he had as well. He had lung difficulties. He had the kidneys, the blood. It was,
You said he gained so many pounds just within a day or so?
100 pounds in 3 days.
Yeah, just retaining fluids and kidneys were shutting down. They were on dialysis, as you said. So, you know, one thing I thought was really amazing here before we just go to a break, the church began, and the people, the intercessors, began to pray for specific things. Tell us just that about them.
Yeah, I don't know how it started. I think our pastor said to one of the nurses, if there was one thing that you could see healed today, what would it be? And she said, it's his blood pressure. And so we kind of started that way, and then we just spread the word. We'd go out to the waiting room and say, everybody pray for his blood pressure to go up. And then we would put it on Facebook, everybody pray. And something really unique just happened, because it's like it ignited that little bit of faith that people had, because there was a lot of people who just felt despair. I don't know how to pray for this guy. This is too big. He's going to die. And so they would take those little bite-sized pieces and go, I can have faith for that. I can have faith that his blood pressure will move up 1. You know, and they would continue to pray like that, and we would see these smaller miracles, which would then build the faith for even another smaller miracle, and to continue on like that.
And every time something happened that was positive, there was an eruption of joy
Absolutely.
in the waiting room.
You know what? I believe that was a Holy Spirit strategy. Wisdom, a word of wisdom from the Lord, because what a difference that made. And I think you have mentioned us off camera that people can believe for a small step. You know, believing for the whole step was just too big.
Yeah.
Right.
What an amazing story we're listening to. Listen, it gets better. This is their book, While He Lay Dying. It's just a captivating book. Once you start reading it, you just can't put it down. And Laura, you did an awesome job writing it. And I know there's other parts in it.
Bruce wrote some too, after he woke up.
Yes, dear. I understand that. And it's an amazing book. There's a beautiful picture in the back. By the way, the contact information, you get it right there at our prayer center. Contact Jill Madison and her team right now. She can make this book available to you. You definitely want to see this book in your hands, because it's really that kind of an encouraging testimony. We're going to go to the prayer center, and we're going to come back and talk to Bruce and Lara.
Dominion Conference 2015 is coming up very soon. Mark these dates on your calendars. June 28th to July 1st in Calgary at Southside Victory Church. For all the details, check out dickandjoan.com.
Jesus said in Mark 11, have faith in God. Then he goes on to say, you can pray for anything. And if you believe that you have received it, it will be yours. But I know some of you right now who are watching are just saying, look, my faith is so weak right now. My faith is so small. I can't believe for anything. Well, that's why we want you to call the prayer center, because we've got powerful prayer partners standing by at the phones, and they will join their faith with yours. And then your prayer request is sent on to other powerful intercessors who will join their faith with yours. And by the time we're done, your little bit of faith becomes huge, great big faith. Huge, great big faith in our huge, great big God, who will do huge, great big miracles for you. So we want you to call the prayer center right now, 403-942-0123.
Dominion Conference 2015 is coming up very soon. Mark these dates on your calendars. June 28th to July 1st in Calgary at Southside Victory Church. Join Dick and Joan along with special guests Francis Armstrong, Bill Prankard, Patricia King, Len Zodeman, and Craig Broker, along with Crystal Henderson for Kids Ministry and Ryan and Alyssa Caldwell and Charles Shortino leading worship. There is a registration for the conference this year. The early bird is $20 per person or $30 per family or couple, and that deadline is June 1st. After that, it'll be $25 per person or $35 per family or couple. For all the details, check out dickandjoan.com.
Yes, please call the prayer center. The book is available there, but if you're facing a crisis, this is the time to call. Jill has a whole network of people that will pray. And by the way, the prayer requests and all of that comes in are saturated with prayer. She has special meetings to pray over them. They're followed up. We're just really proud of Jill, the way she does that, right?
Yeah.
We are with Bruce and Laura, and they have such an amazing story. When we left, we talked about Good Friday, which was not such Good Friday. It was a dark Friday. Laura, tell us
we
about...
didn't really get into it, but that's where we want to go.
Yeah. So Good Friday, or as I kind of termed it, Dark Friday, happened after a day where we'd actually seen a number of small miracles and almost a turnaround. We thought he was getting better. So I went to bed that night actually feeling the best that I had all week, feeling like maybe we were headed in the right direction towards recovery. And that's when I got probably the hardest phone call I've ever had. And the doctor woke me up, called me early in the morning and said, we think that it's spread. We think that the flesh eating disease has now spread into his calf.
Wow.
And that they would have to do surgery sometime that day. And that quite upset me, and I went and I had a shower, cried it out, and when I came out, my whole house was in a tizzy. Everybody was upset, everybody was freaking out, and they said the hospital keeps calling. They said that you're not getting there fast enough. And I think that's when I realized we're actually talking about life and death that day, not just a surgery. So I ran down there, and sure enough, Bruce's lungs had actually bled out, and he was on 100% oxygen. His lungs didn't function at all on their own.
I understand now the situation is this, that even to move him just across the hall would have jeopardized his life. That's how fragile his medical state was. So they had to do it there in the room.
Yeah, so they couldn't even move him to the OR, which was literally, it's just the room across the hall from the ICU, and they couldn't push him that far. They felt he was too critical. And so I think for the second time in the history of the hospital, they did surgery right there in his room. They brought the whole surgical team into his room and did it there.
And the other time apparently was just because the OR was full, and so they had to come do it. But this was because they had to do it there, and there was no other way to do it.
But this time they literally brought the OR to your room.
Yeah.
So now there were 100 people praying at that time in the hospital with you?
Yeah, it was Good Friday, and so our church let out, and they, I believe a number of them stayed. There was a few hundred that stayed at the church because they didn't think they could fit in the hospital. But we had at least 100 people, if not more, just lining the halls, filling up all the waiting rooms, and really earnestly praying. Because we were living minute to minute at that point.
What were you hearing from the medical professionals at that time, or were they talking to you, or were they just talking amongst themselves, and what was their prognosis?
Well, we did hear, even a couple days before, we actually heard it from like 5 or 6 sources, that amongst themselves in their own waiting rooms and whatnot, that the doctors were talking, and the nurses were all saying 0%, that they'd never seen someone live through what he was currently in. And but on that day, it was when I came in, there was nurses crying. They were holding my hands and shaking. The doctor looked totally frazzled, and you just knew there might only be a few minutes left.
Did you have the impression that they had come to the place where they had felt they'd done all they could do, or they were doing all they could do?
I think, I was so impressed with our hospital.
Yeah.
And I think even though they were saying there was a 0% chance, there was never, ever a time where I felt that they weren't doing everything
And
they
that
could
they
do.
just said-
They had never given up.
Yeah.
They would try new things. They
Thank
would
God
try
for that.
everything.
Thank God for that.
And in fact, they took really heroic measures. And I can say nothing but just
Yeah.
absolutely impressed with
Now,
what they
wonderful.
did.
Very good friend of yours, also one of the medical doctors that were there, Dr. Stephen Crawford. We've got a clip from him, and he talks about this situation. And in the book, you also quote him saying he notes this as a notable miracle. And so let's go to that right now.
So he was in the hospital for a couple of months, and for the time that he was in the intensive care unit, he was without a doubt the sickest person in the hospital. Chinook Regional Hospital deals with a lot of pretty sick people, but there's no doubt Bruce was extremely unwell. I don't think it's unfair to say that most of the medical staff who were looking after him didn't give him a fantastic chance of recovery, to put it mildly. And although they absolutely did their utmost to keep him alive, experience tells people who work in that area that people who are sick as Bruce generally don't do very well, and certainly don't come out of it feeling the way that Bruce is feeling right now. The medical name is necrotizing fasciitis, which is commonly known as flesh-eating disease. And without treatment, it is a disease that is 100% fatal. So if people don't have access to treatment, they will die from that. So with antibiotics and things, and with supportive treatment like Bruce had in the ICU, a significant proportion of people do recover. But with the severity of illness that Bruce had, the chances of somebody recovering in an intact way, like Bruce did, so not losing any limbs or toes or so on, is very small.
Well, that was great testimony of just how significant what took place here. We want to talk to you now. This seemed to be the turnaround. This was the low point, Good Friday and following. Tell us now, what began to happen? You began to wake up?
After the Good Friday, you mean?
Well, in the time that followed. You were
I was
in a coma for about 3 weeks,
Yeah,
right?
3 weeks total, yeah. So waking up was, that was surreal. It was like you're in this dream and you're waking up, and parts of it, we'd be almost in this room here, but the background would be like forest or valleys or just different things, and I almost traveled through different parts of my childhood history or places I lived and things like that. And so it's kind of coming to grips, and it took a few days of just waking up, because the medicine they've given you is so powerful that you're just kind of getting it out of your system until you suddenly realized. I was one day, I remember asking someone, because people would come in to visit and they were so excited to see me because this guy was going to die and is now alive. I could tell they were so excited to see me, and they would ask me, different questions and things. And then I remember asking them, what city are we in, And then it finally dawned on me exactly kind of what had happened. I put things together.
So,
Sorry.
yeah, I just need to ask you then, did it take you a while to really understand just the severity of what had happened? And
Yeah, because I thought I'd gone in with a pulled hamstring.
Well, and the funny thing is that because of the medication was on, it actually affects your memory, right? So he woke up 3 times, and we told him, for 3 days in a row, we told him what happened like it was the first time, and it actually just got funnier and funnier as we would tell him, because he would have the same reaction every time we told him. And his feet looked quite bad, so we would tell him, you had flesh-eating disease, and his eyes would bug. He couldn't talk because he was still attached to the ventilator, and his eyes would bug out, and then we would tell him, do you want to see your feet? And he would look at us like, what's wrong with my feet? And then we'd lift him up, and he'd see his feet, and he would be shocked. And it just actually got funnier for us as we went along, because we knew it was like Groundhog Day. We would just repeat it the next day. So.
now, was he still quite ballooned up, as you said before?
No, once his kidneys started to function, then he actually lost a lot of weight. So he lost 130 pounds in the matter of probably a week. So, and he atrophied, so his arms were very small, his legs were very small.
That's hard to believe as I look at you right now, that you atrophied. You're a big fellow. It's hard to believe that you even went through this when I see you sitting here like this. So they were calling you the miracle man. When did the reality of what happened to you really become clear to you?
You know, that just unfolded over time, I think, in talking to people and doctors and just hearing what had happened and all the support and how the story had gone out to so many different people, thousands and tens of thousands around the world, and then piecing together all the miracles that had happened, different things in my body. And it was when I was getting down to get skin grafts, and then the one nurse, looked at my chart. Oh, Bruce Mertz, you're a miracle man. And I was like, I'd never heard that term, and I was like, miracle? How do you know me? He's like, oh, everybody in the hospital knows you.
Wow.
Yeah. What a great testimony.
A great testimony to even the medical people that God. So speaking of that, this is the book called While He Lay Dying, and it's wonderfully written. Both of you have written, others have contributed, but really walks you through the story, and I think that's something that connects you to the book. That's why it's hard to put it down. But the story is so wonderful because the miracle takes place. Bruce, there's no question, and it's mentioned in the book, but medically and in every other way, you should not be here on this set today.
Absolutely. And most people with flesh-eating disease, like what's common is, you get amputations, right?
That's
they talked about, they said one nurse, apparently I heard later, that flesh-eating disease, it was really weird. They're watching it going on in my body and they said, this just isn't normal. Usually it's like at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and they just chop because it goes that fast.
It is
and
true.
they watch it almost kind of like ebb and flow and almost be held back and then it would spread a bit or whatever.
That was prayer.
Totally, absolutely. And so, most people would come through with, like life-altering, like situations where you'd have no legs maybe, or there was one other person that had made it through to rehab like I had, and they had no, I think no hands, no feet.
Wow.
I don't know what to describe it as.
You know what? There's so much more to this story, and thankfully we're going to do another program with you. And because I really think we could have done 4 programs with you because the story is that compelling. I want to invite you to get the book. All right, you can contact the Prayer Center right now. The number, email, everything's on the screen. There are prayer partners during every one of our programs. You can contact them. They can also give you information how to get the book. We'll be sending it out to you. Seriously, if you've ever gone through a condition where you've wondered, where did God go? He started this in my life, and then suddenly I feel like I've been dropped and I'm abandoned. You need to get the book and learn as the story unfolds just how God had His hand in everything. As hard as that was, and I know that it must have been a pretty deep valley for you, Laura, many times.
Absolutely.
I think your faith was probably tested to the extreme. And here you are today. A testimony of grace. Testimony of victory, and it only tells you how good God is and what He has for you in the future. We say the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
Our best day is in front of us. So we invite you to do that. By the way, we really do encourage you to make sure you watch the program, this next program, because we're going to finish the story with Bruce and Laura. Now, remember this, God is good.
All the time.
And all the time.
God is good.
See you next time.
Yeah, bye-bye.
This program is supported by viewers like you, and we thank you for your partnership. We want to hear from you. Send us your prayer requests, praise reports, and comments on the program. Be sure to visit our website for up-to-date information or get in touch with us by email or phone. And don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.